I'm showing 2 o'clock, so it looks like you're recording. So welcome everyone to the February 25th meeting of the Northern Middlesex Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm Derek Schuster. Kelly, please call the roll.
All right. So we have Derek Schuster.
Derek Schuster representing MassDOT Interim Secretary and CEO Philip Ng.
Brian Fallon.
Brian Fallon representing Undersecretary and Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Pat Wilges. Here. Stephen Demolis.
Steve Demolis, NMCOG Chair.
All right, and no longer vacant, we have Belinda Duran.
Hi, Belinda Duran from Lowell City Council.
I'm sorry, Belinda, I wasn't trying to infer that you're vacant.
No, I didn't think.
I'm sorry. Not intended that way. I'm so glad you're here. And let's see here. I don't see anyone. I don't see Tom Bommel or Bob Rafferty, Karen Pulio here. All right. And our ex officio members, we don't have anyone here from FHWA, FTA, and I know that Jeff Rosen wasn't able to make it today either. So we have quorum.
All right. Next we'll move on to open public comment period for amendment number 2 to the federal fiscal year 26 to 30 tip. The tip amendment number 2 was released at the previous NPO meeting on January 28th. Sounds like a relatively new policy. We'll be inviting a public comment period for that amendment at the start of the NPO meeting. Before we ask if there's any comment from the public now, were there any written comments received by staff?
We did receive a written comment after the close of the public comment period. I see Andrew Jennings is here, so it wasn't an adverse comment. It was just maybe more of a question about funding and changes to funding. So Andrew, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that at all at this meeting.
I'm just opening East.
I think if the members read it, that will be sufficient. But we've had a huge price increase here. That if it had been known when route selection was processed, may have actually chosen another different route where the cost increases weren't implied. Now, I'm not enough of an engineer and wasn't familiar enough at the time of route selection to know whether that would be the case, but I think it should be something that the members of the MPO should be concerned about. Thank you.
So that was the only written comment received. And then if anyone else has additional comments, we have some members of the public here today.
Okay. Are there any members from the public wishing to make comment at this time on tip amendment number 2? I don't know if there's any raised hands. It doesn't look like
No, sorry, no raised hands here.
Okay. Yeah, if I can respond to that about the cost increase. Just trying to double check whether this is being statewide or regional target funded for the cost increase.
That's statewide.
I thought it was statewide. So I'm not sure Mr. Jennings had an opportunity to read the justification for the cost increases that were shared. Thank you for the note about the alignment consideration. Did anyone from the board have additional thoughts on the Yankee Doodle Bike Path construction phase 1 cost increase or scope?
I'll just note, okay, so it was a 43% increase.
Yeah.
So it is significant. I think that the detailed list of the proposed changes did a good job of sharing the reason why. I mean, 5 million of it, which is the vast majority of the increase, is due to the bridge construction, which may or may not have been known at design. So I think that piece is one of those that we can acknowledge and just, use for the future as we continue to, build this out. But pretty significant, but it's the trust system on the bridge, pretty significant and probably wasn't in design. So I appreciated very much the detail in the proposed changes was very helpful.
I'll pass along to the project manager. Thank you. District 4, do you have anything else to add about the cost increase concerns?
No, Derek. I think when, especially for this particular type of project, when you're trying to, you know, go through your design phases and you're trying to decide the best path of travel for this a bike path, certain engineering challenges kind of make themselves known as you go through the design process. So, as they picked the best route for this path, they had to navigate some wetland areas, couldn't do a lot of filling, so they had to put in a lot of boardwalk. And this path also crosses Route 3 on Orchard Road, I believe, and they had to ramp up the bike path up to that elevation, which is pretty high above Route 3. So that created the necessity for a lot more bridge structure. So I think, as you go through the design process, you kind of come upon these challenges and kind of the price does increase based upon the opportunities you have to kind of make the bike path connections that you were hoping to make at the beginning of the project. I hope that helps.
We will have the actual vote on tip amendment 2 short in a little bit, but this
Yeah.
is just our, instead, in lieu of holding a public hearing in the middle of the day or in an evening, and we've had a hard time getting participation in that. It felt like as part of our public participation plan, having these open comments as part of our MPO meeting is a way for the board members to hear them directly, which is beneficial.
I like it. All right. Well, if there's no other comments on tip amendment number 2, which I believe was inclusive of the highway and transit changes, right?
Yes.
Going once, going twice. Okay, we're gonna close the open public comment period for amendment number 2 and move on to opportunity for comments from community stakeholders and the public for any other concerns. Are there any other items members from the public would like to speak to at this time? If so, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. I'm not seeing any, so we're gonna move on from the open forum. If anyone from the public does have a comment they'd like to make, just please use the raise hand feature and wait to be called on by the chair. Moving on, we now have item 3, approval of the January 28th, 2026 Northern Middlesex MPO meeting minutes. The minutes were provided with the materials for today's meeting. Can I please have a motion and second to approve the meetings as drafted?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any comments, revisions, changes to the minutes from anyone? Seeing here none, Kelly, please call the roll.
All right, Derek Schuster,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Stephen Themelis,
Yes.
Belinda Duran.
Yes, but I wasn't here for.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
all right, the motion passes.
All right. Do we have Karen?
Oh, I'm sorry, Karen Polio.
And I'm abstaining.
I'm sorry, yes, okay.
It's okay.
I wrote a K down for your name and that didn't trigger anything in my memory, so I will make sure I call you next time, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is federal fiscal year 26 to 30 transportation improvement program amendment number 2. The comment period closed a few moments ago. We did receive one comment noted on the record. Was there any other discussion from the board at this time? Or the member from the public about the content of amendment number 2?
Actually, one thing I wanted to mention.
Sure.
So between the last board meeting and this one, we received some more information about the changes in regards to the George Inglesby Elementary School, project 609510. That is a cost increase of $355,204. With moving the project forward one fiscal year to 2028. So something that's happening quicker than originally planned. So that's always worth celebrating. And we learned that the project is currently ahead of schedule, which is why it is being moved forward. And that the cost increase is due to early revision of the original cost estimates. So nothing too exciting about that, but it is something that we've added to the document since the last time that we brought up the amendment.
Thank you. Cool. If there are no other questions or comments, could I please have a motion and second to endorse tip amendment number 2?
Vote to endorse to amendment number 2.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Kelly, please call the roll.
Derek Schuster,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
Stephen Themelis,
Yes.
Belinda Duran,
Yes.
Karen Coolio.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we're moving on to federal fiscal year 26 to 30 tip amendment number 3. LRTA design services for LRTA fixed route maintenance facility expansion and upgrade to accommodate expanded service. Is this Blake or Justin?
Blake, and I also know we have Ally Bent and Justin Howard here from the LRTA, so if there's any additional questions, they probably do.
Yes, and I will not be offended if you guys tell me I did not interpret this correctly. So what we have here is adding $600,000 to the transit side of the federal fiscal year 26-30 tip. And the vote is to release it for a 21-day public comment period. So what this is that the LRTA would like to use monies that will lapse. So and program lapsing federal funds to do design work to expand LRTA's Hale Street maintenance facility for their fixed route buses. And this is to plan ahead in the future as LRTA plans on expanding its service. It will need a larger facility to maintain a larger fleet of vehicles. The $600,000 is coming from $432,000 from section 5307 funds, with $67,000 from 5339 funds, with a match of $100,000 from stock total credits. That is all.
There's just a little nuance to this I wanted to add. Officially, the project cost is $500,000, but when using toll development credits as match, it reflects as 20% on top of what the total federal cost of the project is. So that's why it reflects as a $600,000 investment, but it's actually a $500,000 one. Is that correct, Ally?
Yes, thank you, Derek.
Okay. And the 5339, is that formula or discretionary?
That's formula.
Okay. Great. Are there any questions for LRTA on proposed amendment number 3?
So does that mean the value actually should be 500,000 and not 600,000?
It should be $500,000, but because of the strange circumstances around toll development credits, it shows as $600,000 on a tip.
That's never, and it's never spent or.
No, so yeah, no, it's a great question. And
We all had questions.
Yeah.
I was hoping we would have this conversation.
Yeah, it took me a few years to understand toll development credits myself, and even still. So when you have a federal aid investment with most federal aid funding categories, like 5307 or urbanized area formula funds, and that's so 5307 or 5339, which is bus and bus facility formula. It's normally supposed to be 80% federal plus an additional 20% match. States are eligible to request a certain amount of toll development credits based on toll revenue collection in a year, and Mass Automatic Transit Division gets a list of how much funding, like other states, we are able to use for toll development credit as a soft match. But when doing that, because you're not using a hard match for it, you're basically not stretching your federal dollar as far. But it's a nice mechanism you can use absent a match existing for that federal investment. All that's to say, if you're using toll development credits for a 100% federal aid investment, it has to reflect in this case as 20% additional on the federal aid investment. So instead of this project being funded with $100,000 of some other local or state match source and $400,000 of federal, LRTA is able to use $500,000 of federal, but has to dip into that toll development credit pool of funds. Not real funds, but what the states are allowed to credit for. We generally don't use it for highway projects because it would mean we're only able to do 75% as much highway construction as we do, since we provide the match from the state for those jobs. But with transit, obviously, there's some financial hardship circumstances that we will prioritize toll development credits in circumstances like this for an investment. Am I mischaracterizing anything, Ally? Is that your understanding?
Well, that's kind of the way I understand it in the back of my mind. I know it's not like a reimbursement, but that's kind of how I reconcile it in my head, because when I do the federal grant, it's for the 500,000. And it's almost, to me, it's like I'm spending, I'm spending 100% federal dollars when I'm actually invoicing it. So I look like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah, the state is reimbursing the feds on the backside, which I know is not exactly how it works, but in my mind, that's kind of, like you said, like a credit. That's the way that it makes sense to me. So, but right, when I was putting it in E-STIP, and I have another project, I think that, or is it actually, I think it was this project, the MassDOT was asking me a question on it again, because it's the total project cost is that 500,000, but E-STIP adds the toll credit match. When I'm doing the federal grant in the federal system, I add the toll credits and it doesn't affect the total project cost. So
It shows the 600,000 net funds on this, but it is actually a $500,000 investment.
Yeah.
The $100,000 is a soft match. Kind of like when a discretionary grant is awarded to a community, and the discretionary grant might allow for the local match to be, some sort of community soft match, like the labor or something
Oh,
associated with the
like
job.
time,
Yeah, time.
in kind hours.
Yeah, it's similar to that, but from a reporting standpoint, reports is the 20% value of the project on top of the federal amount.
So should this document say 500,000?
I would export the revision report from E-STIP as drafted by Ally, and just use that funding breakdown by funding category for whatever you've released for public comment. Because that's the proper accounting, and if you want, I'm happy to work with you and Rail and Transit Division and Ally to put a paragraph together explaining the nuances. I always love that paragraph.
Yeah, there was a lot.
So.
I don't think I'm the only one that would want that paragraph.
Yeah. Yeah, I can help you wordsmith that. I think that's a good attempt, just from the limited amount of time. Did that answer your question, Pat, or only reasonable?
I think at least partway did, but yeah,
Okay,
that's, that's fine.
it's a $500,000 investment, real dollar investment. That can only be made possible with the soft match called TDC. Your question?
So that's why TPC is 600,000.
The total participating cost?
Sorry, total project cost.
Yeah, so
Because I heard Ally say 500 for TPC,
it is.
but on this write-up it says 6, and I just.
Yeah, that's why I think I want to work with Blake to just reflect the accounting breakdown and put maybe an asterisk on
Yeah.
TDC, because it is a $500,000 investment, not a $600,000
Right.
investment. It shows as $600,000 across 3 funding sources. 2 federal that equal the total $500,000 job, 100,000 for the soft match, that's total development.
Yeah.
So the change to the tip is $600,000, but the total project cost is 500,000.
Right. It won't,
So sorry,
Okay.
just again, I don't know if it makes sense, but like maybe like an E-STIP process thing for toll credits, like programming them at 0 and just putting it in the description, because it is now.
I went back and forth with Rail and Transit Division at FTA about this a couple years ago. You put it in perfectly. Okay. Don't change how you input it.
I always go
Um,
back because even doing the
For an
calculation is
FTA, this is how it has to be reported, so we're just playing along with what the federal guidance is for how to report it.
Okay,
Public ops wise, like how to communicate that needs a little more context, so I'll be happy to set up something where you can fix it.
Government math is different than high school.
For sure.
2 + 2 = 7. Alright, could I please get a motion and second to release tip amendment number 3 for 21-day public comment?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and second.
All right, Derek Schuster,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wilches.
Yes.
Stephen Themelis,
Yes.
Belinda Duran,
Yes.
and Karen Pulio.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank
Thank
you.
For fun, go to a New Hampshire tip amendment agenda item meeting at any New Hampshire NMPO. New Hampshire leans very heavily on toll development credits as matched for highway and transit projects. So they might have a cleaner way of explaining the nuances of it, but we don't use it much in Massachusetts, except for RTs and cases like this. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Critical rural and urban freight corridor updates. Who's presenting on that?
That's me.
All right.
All right, so we've been asked by MassDOT to review our total federal, our total freight corridor mileage. And Apple, Gold Schultz, credit to her for actually doing this work. She's not with us anymore, but she's at MAPC. But she now, she was able to do this work for us. And so we requested through MassDOT, an update to our critical rural and critical urban freight corridors. Our region is allocated a certain amount of mileage for these corridors. 1.8 miles for rural corridors and 6.83 miles for urban corridors. So that's like our maximum of mileage of freight corridors that we can allocate. Apple went through and reviewed our existing freight corridors against some of our traffic count data, because we do collect both traffic volumes, and then we understand what proportion of those traffic volumes are heavy trucks. And then we're able to use that truck percentage data to understand where our trucks actually, like, where are those corridors likely to be that aren't reflected in our current corridors. And then we evaluated that against federal eligibility criteria. So does it connect to the federal highway freight system? Does it provide access to land uses that support, that rely on freight? Does it support that first and last mile of freight movement? So getting from a land use that's industrial or commercial to one of those highway freight corridors. And then does it accommodate demonstrated truck activity? So in the materials for this meeting, there was a memo kind of outlining that process. And then it described what we have been corresponding with MassDOT about what those changes to those critical rural and critical urban freight corridors might be. The one change to the critical rural freight corridor is the addition of nearly 1 mile of a freight corridor in Pepperell on South Road. And that was really based on the percentage of truck traffic. So this is, again, where our traffic counting program really is important, because we kind of understand the changes. With adding that 0.95 miles to our critical rural freight corridors, we're still under our 1.8 mile target. So we're able to add that and still remain within the maximum. And then we're also recommending an addition of 2.78 miles, and this would be along the Lowell connector, which would still keep us under our 6.3 mile target. And this would be an addition to our critical urban freight corridor mileage. We're presenting these to you today. The memo explains a lot more, but I can try to answer any questions you might have. We need the NPO to vote to endorse these changes so that we can communicate that back to MassDOT, so that MassDOT includes it in their statewide freight plan, which they're currently updating. So this would just include those corridors in that freight plan, probably avail them of additional funding for improvements. And it's just nice to reflect where heavy truck uses are actually going in the region, and then make sure that those are eligible for additional funding. If anyone from MassDOT has additional clarifications on this, that could also be discussed.
Are the red inclusive of urban and rural?
So the red in pepperell here, the red just indicates the proposed, so our current is in blue. And those we've noted in the memo just because there has been some change to maybe truck percentage or, it doesn't change the mileage, but we're just noting that those are of interest. And then the red for Pepperell is our addition to the rural corridor.
Okay.
And the red here in Lowell is an addition to our urban corridor mileage.
And then I guess the next question I have about the Lowell connector, because I know that there's a tip program project, that might make changes
Yeah,
there.
and that project really begins about here.
Okay,
And
so the
goes to there.
proposals beyond the scope of that project. Okay.
Yeah.
Would there be any incentive to that being included?
That is a good,
I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
like there was when a project's part of the freight network, it's eligible for National Highway Freight Program funding in addition to NHPP or SDG, et cetera, like the different funding categories you can use.
okay,
That said, like we don't get much NHFP, so it's not like critical
Yeah.
for that to be added to scope, but I guess I'm curious if the MPO board feels differently or has thoughts on that. How much bank is left?
so we would still have probably enough to add that if it is, a potential, because we have about a half a mile left in our urban freight corridor network.
Do you think it's appropriate for that to be recognized as I don't know much about the project except that it's in design.
Yeah,
Is it appropriate or inappropriate to assign freight importance to that project location or not?
so I think the question is that, and I know Liz Altman is here too, so if she has any comments from the city, that may also be helpful. The industrial area where the truck traffic really goes veers off here and goes to this area to the south.
Okay.
I don't think, I would have to look at the data to be certain, but I don't believe as much truck traffic is going from this interchange here to the end of the Lowell connector. Primarily because of where the industrial and commercial properties are along that corridor.
Aren't there some off to the right on down Gorham Street?
This is like where the Target is and some of those other, and then there are some additional commercial properties up here.
So that's ending at Plain Street?
No, I think it's at Gorham Street and
It is at Gorham.
It's at Gorham in the middle.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, so maybe we just missed that segment on the map there.
Yeah, just might not include that, so.
Yeah.
But the original document, I think, does,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting
Okay.
hung up on the map.
Sorry, yeah.
It doesn't make sense for it in there, because there's no exit right there. Like.
No,
the truck is not gonna just.
Yeah, but isn't that, don't we have to, that's where it
I think it's like Cannon Street.
Okay, that's Gorham Street, sorry, yeah.
Okay,
So it is.
It should keep going.
so it does keep going beyond the red on the map, but the description contextualizes that. Is the map like a geodot source or is that your map?
That's something we created just to show, like, it's nice to show where, like, the streets that we're actually talking about. But
Okay.
we've been corresponding with MassDOT with the actual, like, a full spreadsheet of like what the extents of the product are and.
All right.
lines and-
Great, that was my main
Yeah, no, that's.
question, and it sounds like that Gorham Street is part of the scope for that
Yes.
project, okay, so.
Thanks for pointing it out.
Just try to keep funding category options open. For
Yeah, no,
projects.
yeah.
All right, were there any other questions from the board about the freight corridor updates as presented?
I have one question. So how is a truck defined?
I believe it's based on axles.
I'm just surprised to see the Lowell connector added for the first time, but that's why I was wondering whether there was a change to definition on what was a truck. Or whether it was just something that was left out there in the past.
Yeah, I don't know the last time, I definitely haven't looked at this since I've joined NMCOG, so it may have been looked at in the past, and I think the impetus for this update is really the state's update to its freight plan.
Yeah.
And so the state asked us to look at these corridors and look at our data and see if we had any additional recommendations.
but the choice is ultimately up to each MPO, not the state on, you know,
Yeah.
where are your critical corridors.
Right.
So, if there's any other input, please speak now or make a motion to endorse the critical urban and rural freight corridor updates as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Philip, please call the roll.
All right, Derek Schuster,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
Stephen Demolis,
Yes.
Belinda Duran,
Yes.
and Karen Pulio.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Random question, doesn't have any bearing on the vote that was just made. Does Tingsboro not have freight corridor around Route 3 or the state border?
I'll have to look at the spreadsheet and double check.
I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah. I don't think we were being.
I'm getting hung up on the map.
Oh, yeah, this is really more of like where we've noted changes, not necessarily where all of our freight corridors
Got it.
are.
Okay.
So, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next is tip funding program study.
All right, we talked about this a lot at our last meeting, so I don't necessarily want to repeat everything we said last time. And I think this program, these two pilot programs are going to come into play more in our next agenda item where we talk about tip readiness. I did provide memos from staff as part of the agenda packet, so those are available to you to look at and understand a little bit more of the details about each program. But just as a reminder, kind of going into our next tip development cycle, we're looking at piloting these two programs. One is to help our communities advance design of tip eligible projects. And so this would be funding for design and engineering or any kind of pre-construction activities. And you'll see when we look at the tip that we have maybe a shortage of new projects that are in the pipeline. And this is really to try to attempt to resolve that. And it's also an attempt to resolve issues with project stalling. Because I think if we have maybe the MPO staff working closely with MassDOT and the communities to make sure that these projects are moving forward as planned. Hopefully we'll see fewer delays in some of these projects. I know it's an initiative of MassDOT already to really work hard to keep projects on track. But we're looking at major problems in 2028 and 29. So we're kind of looking ahead at that and thinking, how can we help our communities get more projects on the tip and keep those projects moving once they are on the tip. So our recommendation this is really the very high level version of the memo is that we do fund design advancement projects. We have approximately $3.7 million remaining in this current federal fiscal year in 2026. We have two potential projects that could, and we've been working closely with MassDOT's team to make sure that we can get some of those projects funded in 2026. We're also talking with, I know the LRTA is interested in additional funds if we're not able to encumber that 3.7 million entirely to design projects. So we're kind of working on advancing that pilot program in this current federal fiscal year because of that sudden amount of funding that we have. And then when we look at our funding scenarios for 2027, looking at how we can use the tip design advancement pilot project to fund limited number of projects in 2027 as well. So this is more of nothing that you need to vote on today, but just kind of giving you a heads up that this is a program that we're looking to advance in our next tip development cycle. And that hopefully that will help to resolve some of the problems that you'll see in our tip readiness that we'll be talking about in a future agenda item. So that's the first one. The second is a program that Blake has been working on. I don't know, you want to just summarize this or if you want me to run through it real quick? Okay, and this is really a micro projects fund. So it's a smaller amount of funding. As Blake talked about last month, we're either looking at somewhere between $100,000 and $400,000 a year. For piloting a project to fund things like bike racks, bike share, bus shelters, trail amenities, and trail and path connections. These are often the projects that kind of our communities have limited Chapter 90 funds. These definitely take probably locally a lower priority than filling in potholes and resurfacing, and we understand that to be the case. And so we're trying to find ways to use our TIP funding creatively to help advance these projects, which are definitely in line with our Vision Zero plan and Vision 2050, and then the Greater Lowell Bicycle and Pedestrian. Bless you.
Thank you.
And just as a high note, any projects that would be funded through this micro projects program, they have to be on existing public land. We can't include right-of-way acquisition as part of those projects. And the communities have to provide that 20% local match. The same would go for the design advancement program. That said, what we've seen in Cape Cod Commission and in other NPOs is that sometimes the communities can provide that match through installation services. So they procure the bike racks. The bike racks are covered through CMAQ funding, and then the cost of installation covers essentially the community's match. So there are ways to have that match be less of a fiscal match and more of just a
Like toll credits.
a person, yes, exactly, a person power match. Yeah, exactly. We're quantifying hours. And so our recommendation and what you'll see when we go forward with TIP scenarios next month is that you'll see some funding set aside in upcoming years for this program as well. Happy to answer any questions about that, but just wanted to kind of summarize what you would see in those memos that we provided to you. And I just want to thank, I know we've been talking with a lot of MassDOT staff about these projects. We've been talking with Derek and Miranda, with Derek Cravat, Benjamin Mueller, Tracy Lenhart, all of the district staff. And I know it's been a lot of their time that they've dedicated to helping us get these projects off the ground. So I just want to acknowledge that it's been a lot of work and a lot of work that they probably didn't necessarily dedicate to answering our questions. So I just really appreciate MassDOT's support in helping us get these projects.
Kelly, I have a question.
Yeah.
On the projects must demonstrably improve air quality to qualify for CMAQ funding cannot be purely recreational. Can you kind of dive a little bit deeper on that in terms of what do you mean by improved air quality?
If
What
I may,
warrants that?
if I may direct your attention to the state CMAQ coordinator, Miranda Briseno, who happens to be in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so for these projects, a lot of the ones that we fund through CMAQ are, like Kelly said, bike racks, bike shares, so like in the Boston area, a lot of blue bikes funding, we do through NMPO. And I'm thinking of other ones, and like general bike infrastructure. We have templates that predate me, but were created to with the number of bikes or the number of miles added for like a bike trail project. So it's sort of quantified roughly the mode shift of how many people would be now using that over driving a car, and that turns does some calculations and spits out some numbers. It's roughly we have 4 different emissions that I can't remember besides CO and CO2.
Volatile chemicals, carbon monoxide, noxious gases, and carbon dioxide.
That we report onto federal highway. So, and we keep a record of all of those, and those projects go through what we call the CMAQ consultation committee, where the other NPOs hear about the projects, their intent, and see the map, and offer any input. So there's a sort of system that we have at MassDOT to make sure we're following all the rules and regulations attached to this funding.
If the micro project investment won't demonstrate a reduction in vehicle trips, vehicle miles traveled, and therefore no benefit to air quality improvement, then it wouldn't be eligible for the CMAQ funding source. That's a federal law. Similarly, sometimes there are investments that actually, when you run the analysis, worsen air quality emissions. Not necessarily for the micro projects that we're talking about here, but like sometimes with flexing CMAQ funding to FTA, if LRTA needed to replace certain buses, for example. If the buses they were replacing were like an in-kind diesel to diesel or something versus going to a hybrid or electric vehicle, that could actually worsen air quality. So Doesn't happen often, but that's why we have to run the analysis, why we have the committee that reviews this, and why those parameters have to be set for the micro project program. So that you don't go down a path of working toward a project that wouldn't be approved by all these bodies.
Okay, thank you.
And happily,
Oh, when I think about purely recreational, sometimes I imagine like a park with like a trail that just goes in a circle around like a pond and doesn't connect to anything, that would be a recreational trail. But if that trail connected on both sides of the park and you could cut through the park to access something on the other side, then now you have a trail that has some kind of transportation function and is recreational. So it just can't be only recreational. I believe that is a way that you could think about it.
and do you think there might be a preference for like a paved surface as opposed to like a stone dust or adventure trail or something?
Yeah, something you can use vehicles on. As opposed to like a hiking trail. That's dirt.
Any other questions on the TIP program study? TIP funding program study? All right, thanks for those updates. Okay. Next item, sorry, is federal fiscal year 27 to 31 transportation improvement program and federal fiscal year 27 unified planning work program and development.
So this is where it gets fun. The good news is that our funding is pretty stable. We've only seen minor increases or decreases, from what was projected for, 27, 28, 29, 30. So we have our funding allocations from NASA and Federal Highway. Over the next 5 years, we're projected to be able to program 71 million and change for infrastructure, the 2 pilot programs. And this doesn't include our transit funding. So this is just for highway. What you'll see on the next slide, however, is that any projects that we previously had programmed in 2027 are no longer ready in 2027. So that means that we have $13.9 million to find a way to figure out how to keep that money really try to find a way to keep that money in the region next year. And I can explain why some of those projects have moved in the next slide, but just keep that in mind. And for the design pilot program and the CMAQ funding program, that 2.7 in state match doesn't really count for that total. So we may be looking at more, if all of the projects in 2027 were projects required a local match, we're looking at $11.1 million of funding that has to be allocated. And we'll also be talking with the LRTA about potential projects that could be funded through this funding as well. We participated in TIP readiness days. So all of the first thing to note is that we don't have any new projects in our region that are ready to be programmed on the TIP.
For construction.
For construction. And we have one project that is a state level project, a Safe Routes to School project that could get funded on the state TIP. But when we're talking about projects for our region-wide TIP, we don't have any new projects. The projects that had been programmed in 2027 were the Chelmsford traffic signal installation at Route 110 and Route 495. And then the Tewksbury intersection improvements at Main and Pleasant and North and East Street. Both of those projects have had project delays. And so those projects aren't going to be ready in 2027. The staff who are working on those projects have recommended that the earliest year that they will be ready is 2028. The big problem that we are wrestling with is that our highest scoring TIP project is the Lowell connector, and that project is already programmed and has been programmed for a long time in 2028. That project, no other project on this list competes with that project for tech scoring. So that project, unless the board instructs us otherwise, that project will remain programmed in 2028. And that's what you're likely to see in the scenarios that we're going to present, because that's where our tech scoring, our transportation evaluation criteria really comes into play when we have these competing projects like this. We also had programmed in 2028 the vinyl square safety improvements. This is a project that we're working with the town, because the project is currently is almost nearing the end of 25% design. And we're working with the town and MassDOT, to see if we can use TIP funding to help advance the design to 100% design. So that could be an eligible pilot program, for the design advancement program. Just to keep that project moving, because I think without some of that funding, the town may have a hard time funding that project through 100% design. The Westford project is on track. MassDOT has recommended, and we are currently working through our Unified Planning Work Program with the town of Chelmsford on improvements to Chelmsford Street Route 110. I agree with MassDOT's assessment that we would probably remove this project from the TIP until it gets to 25% design, because part of what we're doing through the project that we're currently working with in the town is trying to help the town identify, like, do they want to use TIP funding? You know, and do they want to comply with MassDOT standards for complete streets? Or do they want to look at alternative funding to actually do this portion of Route 110? And so I think those critical decisions probably necessitate that the Chelmsford improvements on Route 110 are not programmed in our next TIP. And that funding amount there, that 852,000 isn't accurate. That was AC, sorry. I wish it only cost that.
And
Yeah.
just to be clear about MassDOT's recommendation, when we're saying to remove something from the TIP, we're not recommending deactivating the
Right.
project currently
Yes, thank
designed. It's just a matter of realistically looking forward the next 5 years and the present design status.
Yeah.
There's a lot more questions than confidence in recommending programming and setting you up for success with the
Exactly.
available dollars.
Yeah, and I think just to Derek's point too, like, especially through these pilot programs, we're really committed to helping our communities keep these projects on track. And so, you know, removing it, like Derek said, doesn't mean deactivating it. It means that we'll help support the town in advancing the project in whatever way possible.
And there are a handful of projects we shamelessly said we recommend deactivating, fortunately they're in your region, but yeah.
And I will also note, just from talking with staff at other MPOs, I know like the Boston MPO is starting to, in looking at their TIP, they're saying, we're not gonna program a project until it has reached 25% design, just because they've had so many projects that have slipped. That 25% design milestone is really like a good faith. That's really indication that the project is moving. And so that, I think it's maybe a rule to, you know, like a policy to consider when we're looking at projects for the TIP is, let's make sure that the project is really moving in earnest. And that we can program it in a year that we can viably expect it to be constructed.
On that first one,
Yeah.
Isn't that a state design one? Is that correct? Is that how I'm saying?
Brian, can you confirm? I don't have it in front of me.
State
Where's that
initiated.
D3?
Yeah,
Chelmsford's D2, or 4,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
It is,
yes,
thank you.
it's state designed.
Cause it seems like it's been on and off so many times.
Yeah. I know the project manager at the consulting firm has been changed. Or they changed to a different project manager to try to keep the project moving, but it's just.
Didn't work.
Well, I think it got moving too late. And so it's just not gonna be ready in 2027. I don't know what that means. And we're gonna have a lot of fun with scenarios in the next few weeks. And then, the only other project that is recommended to move back a year is the Tingsboro culvert replacement. And we've been talking with Jake Zwicker, the engineer in Tingsboro. That project could probably also benefit from additional design funding, so. More to come on that. Overall, we have a cluster of projects that are gonna be ready in 2028, so it's gonna be interesting. And then looking at the state TIP projects in our region, the Tewksbury Bridge replacement, Drake improvements at George Englesby Elementary School, and the Yankee Doodle Bike Path Phase 2, those are all projects that are on the state TIP, but they're in our region. And then we have that one new project, which is the little school street improvements at Stoklosa Middle School.
Is that really a 2050?
No, that's MassDOT nomenclature for a project to be programmed.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think that year will change,
Mhm.
and that's why it's blank right now for the earliest programmed year.
Let's
but-
go for unprogrammed.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So this, to me here, this one new project, this is also a reason why I personally feel like the design advancement program is really important. Because that's the only new project that we have to consider in the entire region right now. And that's a project that's on the state tip, not on our region-wide tip.
Now, that's not to say, you know, a region couldn't prioritize a state priority.
Yes,
Plenty of regions ask the state for assistance on their priorities too.
yeah. I wish there was a statewide project that we could move to a region-wide priority in twenty
So,
twenty-seven.
if Rourke Bridge still needed money, like, we would have totally put that on the table for regional
Yeah.
consideration,
Yeah.
but that unfortunately miraculously is fully paid for.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So Kelly.
Yeah.
So, there's no pipeline of projects?
No,
Oh. So in my head, I always had this pipeline that was,
yeah, yeah,
I think part of it, we've heard from communities around the Commonwealth, you know, MassDOT does have some strict design guidance that can be intimidating for smaller communities, which we realize a lot of the communities in the northern Middlesex region might be hesitant to participate in. Because there's an expectation for municipally initiated projects to fund design, and then the commitment is that the state provides a match
Right.
on the federally construction job. That design cost is also a lot more today than it has been in the past. And I think the mechanism that Kelly's speaking to about using 2027 as an opportunity to possibly fund more design activities would be a good opportunity if there was a pipeline development you were trying to do. I think what you need to be mindful of though is for that program to be successful, communities do have to be initiating projects and agreeing to that process.
and agreeing to complete streets standards, so there's a bit of a cultural shift that I think some of our communities, that might be a bit of a challenge. But I think we have done a lot of outreach to a lot of our communities, and I think they're open to it, so.
But not every job has to be a regular construction job. Some jobs can just be safety improvements at intersections. Even on the statewide program, we have some small cost, high impact projects that are making systemic safety improvements near bus stops,
Yeah.
including in the northern Middlesex region.
Yeah.
And we don't currently have a program like that for municipal roadways, but it's not like that. If one or multiple communities wanted to jointly initiate a project like that, work with a designer, have it funded by the region, like there's opportunity there. It's not all like dark and bleak and bad sounding for 2027.
Right.
You have a $13.9 million opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, tangentially, if you haven't seen the Mass Municipal Association Perfect Storm Report, I encourage you to look that up. It explains the fiscal situation that a lot of towns in particular are in. And it's not unique to the northern Middlesex region. This is statewide. We have a lot of communities that have failed overrides. Their chapter 90 money isn't going as far as it used to. They just, the last thing they have is funding for design. And so it's just, it is, I mean, the report is aptly named. So definitely look into that, just to understand, I think, some of the other fiscal constraints that our communities are up against.
So what about the project in Chelmsford from Richardson Road Technology Drive?
That one, I think the town, and I've been talking with the engineer there, and she's interested in seeking design funding for that. We're talking more about Vinyl Square because that project has had a lot of years and energy. I know NMCOG did a report, and Justin can probably speak to this too, like NMCOG did a whole study on Vinyl Square and really want to I think if we have to pick a project to go first, that would probably be the one to focus on. But that one I would say is next in the queue as far as trying to advance that project, both through design and then getting it on the tip. Yeah. Any other question about these projects before
I think Miranda had a little more detail about
sure.
Pat's initial question on the previous slide, the Route 110 and 495 project. Just had a little more summary notes.
Yeah, so from our exercise, we had notes that there were designer delays, and the design schedule just hadn't been advancing at all. But like Kelly said, there was a new designer assigned, or new project manager assigned to the designer end, a new, project manager assigned on the MassDOT end, to hopefully make up for those delays. And try to stay on the new schedule for the design.
And
But we are more confident.
the scope of that project changed quite a bit. You know,
Mhm.
it was originally it was just the interchange, and now
Right.
you've expanded it closer towards Chelmsford Center, and with that, you know, more design is needed. I don't know if there's an opportunity to split it or go back to that original design, but
Brian, wasn't that looked at and I think they just landed on this?
Yeah, I think they
We pushed
can.
Alpine.
Sorry. As far as the limits of work, they're still pretty much the same. It's Alpine Drive to Stedman Street. And the big change in this project is they did a ice evaluation at the two interchange ramp locations. Roundabouts are the preferred treatment. So that it changed quite a bit. And then the pedestrian and bicycle improvements through this area added a lot to this project too. So there's a shared use path that goes through the whole project. And I think they're trying to make a connection down to the Bruce Freeman rail trail. So the scope did increase a little bit. I think it's a lot to do with the treatments at the two interchange ramp systems.
Just a little nomenclature update. ICE and NPO means intersection control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that summary, Brian. Please continue.
Yeah, so we're in February. Next month we'll have some scenarios for you. So that's where we're going next for this, and it's gonna be a challenge. Yeah.
So one thing, Northern Middlesex region and other regions have done in the past, in addition to potential design or micro project pilots and programs as part of your TIP program study, to use those to fill regional target gap is also reach out to your regional transit authority to see if there's any needs LRTA has, and if you want to perhaps flex some highway funding to the RTA. Think some of
absolutely, we're interested.
Yeah, I know Justin Blake has it on his list to reach out to you to schedule a meeting so we can talk about.
Justin, I love the convert you've become, because 6-7 years ago we did that. You had.
Yeah, no, I changed sides. I changed sides.
But yeah, basically, I realized that the financial guidance that Kelly shared with the NPO was highway focused, but LRTA, and perhaps LRTA can provide an update on this at the March meeting, has a draft project list that the funding that RTAs receive is based on something called urbanized area split letters that are set with the Massachusetts Association of Regional Transit Authorities and Federal Transit Administration, FTA, and MARTA, irrespectively. And those splits dictate how much urbanized area formula funding they receive. So that's 5307 funding, 5339 funding. If there's any rural formula funding they receive, it's 5311. And then if there's any other federal or non-federal sources, has the RTA gone in discretional grant or not, and so on. And RTAs also have to request match from the state, where it's assumed for the federal aid program, highway program, and built into the financial assumptions Kelly shared. It has to be negotiated with the Rail and Transit Division based on how much bond cap is available. That said, if an RTA has sufficient bond cap availability that's not programmed, they can use that match toward flexed highway funds from a regional program. So if the RTA had $1 million of unused 2027 bond cap available to them, they could technically get $4 million flexed from the regional highway program.
Yeah.
In 2027.
And we did, yeah, I think as an example, we did, under our scenarios last year, we flexed, I think around $2 million to the LRTA for pedestrian improvements at Gallagher. So that, I think those are like really good examples of flexing going well. Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also if like the color of funding is CMAQ, which we were talking about earlier, we just have to demonstrate that whatever LRTA is asking for the funding for actually has an air quality benefit if CMAQ is the color that we'd recommend using, and it usually is the color of choice. That's all my federal aid lecture in that moment, but.
Any questions about TIP before I do a quick summary of UPW? Okay, just to give you an update, we got our estimated PL funds for 27. That's $1.1 million, a little bit of an increase over last year. And those are, you know, just as a reminder, that goes to our Unified Planning Work Program. So that's funding that we set aside largely for staff time to work on those federal certification documents, our long range transportation plan, a transportation improvement program, Unified Planning Work Program, things like performance measures, our traffic count program, but then also regional projects and local projects. So that's where, you know, in the coming months, we'll be presenting a list of projects for you, so you're aware of what we've been thinking about as far as next steps on studies. And some of those will be, I think, like looking at the micro projects. You know, one of those studies might be looking at a bicycle rack inventory across the region, so we understand where there are gaps and where future bike racks could be, you know, to really kind of pair the bike ped plan with CMAQ funding and the micro projects funding and a project that would be done through the Unified Planning Work Program. We also, if MPO staff don't use our entire balance of PL funds in a given federal fiscal year, that money rolls into kind of I don't want to think about it as a savings account because we're not trying to save money, but it goes into an account for 3 years, and those are called deobligated PL funds. And so in the last 3 years, we have, and largely because of staff changes, we have $315,000 that are unspent. And so by the end of March, we need to make a request to MassDOT about how we're proposing to spend those funds. So we're putting together some ideas and we'll present those to the MPO in March. Those deobligated PL funds really can only be used for direct cost expenditures. So sometimes we use them for, I'm trying to think of an example. We have used them for certain equipment. This year we're buying some mobile bike and pedestrian counters. And so those kind of expenses can be used. And then they also can be used for consultant services. So this is how we're paying tool design for the work on the Greater Lowell Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. So we're putting together a proposal package to discuss with MassDOT. Those funds, that allocation has to be approved by MassDOT because our unified RPL funds, they're 80% federal and 20% matched by MassDOT. And so if we're trying to access the $315,000, we're really asking MassDOT to put in the other 20% match. And so that's money that we have to have a conversation with them. So I just wanted you to know like the future of funding for staff time in FFY 37. And so in March, we'll share that list of our intended deobligated funds requests for conversation with you. And then at an upcoming meeting, I think it's later in April, we'll present like the full list of tasks that we're thinking about. And that's also through conversations with our communities about what kind of studies they want us to do.
All right. Any questions for Kelly on TIP or UPWP development?
Kelly, just one quick question. I'm just curious for the accounting purposes of when we're charging staff time.
Yeah.
Is it Is it a benefit rate or is it just a straight salary rate? Just kind of curious.
No, it's, we use our indirect rate and on top of our, yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah. So we, every year we go through, we get a NCRA, federal negotiated indirect, something that's.
Gotcha,
not
we
been-
apply to it.
Yeah, yeah, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Did anyone have any thoughts or considerations for studies or work for the next UPWP development they wanted to mention now? Obviously, if anyone's shy and just wants to shoot staff an email,
Yeah,
I think they're soliciting that over the next couple months, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next update, which is Greater no.
It's not on our agenda.
Oh, so that's.
Was an update on Greater Lowell
Oh.
bike and pedestrian plan
Did I
supposed to be on the
do that?
agenda?
No, it's not on the.
Nope,
It might be
sorry.
from last week. Alright,
Yeah, that was
or
last
month.
Yeah, yeah.
Bummer, I like that update.
We're gonna talk about it again next month, so, yeah, we'll give you a month off.
Alright, next is status report on transportation improvement program projects under design and construction. I think we have an update from District 4. We have Tim here.
Yes, we do.
Hi, Tim.
Hello. We got just a quick update, only 4 items this time. Project 613109, Chelmsford Lowell deck replacement for the Lowell connector. Yeah. 2 bridges over 495, Lowell connector and Lowell connector. The estimates for that have gone up. I mean, have gone down by 7.5 million roughly. And then we have 608227, the Yankee Doodle bike path in Billerica. The phase 1, the notice to proceed was issued on February 13th. 607401, Chelmsford traffic signal installation at Route 110 and 495, 2 locations, as we were just talking about. That had a $3.2 million cost increase roughly in the estimates. And 604694, Lowell connector reconstruction from Thorndike Street to Gorham Street. The estimates for that had an increase of about $750,000. And that's the wrap up.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for District 4 on the 4 projects? I just wanted to note for the first project, 613109, bridge preservation projects, I understand are now being funded with non-federal sources, so that's why they don't get tip reflected. I think they're using fair share money for a lot of the bridge preservation work. So that might be a change you notice if you look at the statewide lists in your region. But as D4 can attest, there are still bridge preservation jobs happening across the northern Middlesex region. All right, thank you, Tim. Do we have any updates from Allie or Justin at LRTA?
Great. Just an update that will be, I think at the March meeting, we'll have another tip amendment. So we're facing pretty long lead times on bus replacements. They're approaching 2 years now. So we had some buses for expanding service that were on the tip in fiscal 26 that are not going to be here within the fiscal year. So we're working with MassDOT to reprogram those funds. And we're planning to use them to do overhauls on some of our older buses to keep them in service a little bit longer while we await the delivery of our replacement buses and buses for expanded service. So just a heads up on that.
All right. Any questions for LRTA? Thanks for the update, Allie.
Yep.
Next item is other business. Do we have any other business at this time?
Just to invite you all, especially if you travel down Route 110 in Chelmsford, we have a public workshop tomorrow night. And so we've worked with the town, the Chelmsford Village Committee, or the Chelmsford Center Village Committee, town staff to come up with 2 different concepts for Route 110. And so we'll be sharing those concepts they're not baked. So we're inviting, comment on those. And so that workshop is tomorrow night from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Chelmsford Public Library. All are welcome to visit. And then our next NPO meeting is March 25, 2 p.m.
All right. Any other business? All right, thank you for that, Kelly. May I please have a motion second to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. See you next month.
See you. Have a good one.
Just has a lot of patience to wait to eat another Twix.
All right, you all.
That you from Chelmsford.